Far at the edge of a quiet coast, where the waves speak in soft whispers and the wind carries the scent of salt and seaweed, there stood a lighthouse. Not a grand or towering one, just a small, round lighthouse made of pale stone, its paint gently peeling with time. It didn't blink or flash much anymore, because ships rarely passed this way now. But still, the lighthouse stood, watching the ocean, as it had for many, many years. The keeper of the lighthouse was an old man named Elliot. He lived alone with his cat, Thimble, who spent most of her days curled up on a windowsill, watching the gulls drift by. Elliot's days were slow and gentle. He would wake up just as the sun slipped over the horizon, drink warm tea with honey, and take a quiet walk along the shore, where tiny shells gathered in clusters like sleepy stars. There was no rush in Elliot's world, no deadlines, no noise, just the steady sound of the sea and the low creak of the lighthouse as it settled in the breeze. Some days he read old books with yellowed pages. Some days he painted little pictures of the waves in soft blue and green. At night, the sky turned deep violet, and stars appeared one by one like lanterns being lit far away. Elliot would sit in his chair by the window, Thimble purring gently at his feet, and he would listen to the sea breathing in and out. The ocean never hurried. Neither did Elliot. Sometimes, in the distance, he'd see a boat pass quietly, its light a tiny glow in the vast dark. He would nod to it, even if it couldn't see him. The lighthouse might not shine as brightly as before, but it still stood, still watching, still keeping its quiet promise to the sea. And in that calm little world, where nothing was loud or fast or urgent, everything was exactly as it needed to be. Just still, just gentle, just peaceful. Elliot liked to keep small treasures from the shore. Not expensive things, just driftwood shaped like crescent moons, or smooth stones that felt cool and comforting in his hand. On a little shelf beside his bed, he had arranged them in a row. Some people might not have noticed them at all, but to Elliot, they were memories of mornings when the sky was the color of rose petals, or evenings when he'd seen dolphins playing far out at sea. Each object had its own quiet story. The shell with a spiral that never seemed to end, he found it after a summer storm, tucked beneath a rock. The piece of green sea glass, worn soft by the waves, he spotted it gleaming in the sand like a sleepy eye. Even an old brass key, rusted and without a lock, sat among the others like a puzzle that didn't need solving. Elliot never felt lonely. The lighthouse was full of little sounds. The tick of the wall clock, the faint hum of the kettle, the shuffle of Thimble's paws when she moved from one nap spot to another. Outside, the waves talked softly to the shore, telling stories no one rushed to finish. Sometimes, Elliot would write letters. Not to anyone in particular, just thoughts, folded carefully and tucked into a drawer. "Today the sea was the color of lavender," he wrote once. "And I saw a seal looking up at me. We didn't say anything, but I think we understood each other." He didn't need to send them. It was enough to write them down. The lighthouse had a rhythm. The days moved like gentle tides. Morning sunlight would spill across the stone floor. Afternoon breezes would flutter the curtains. And in the evenings, the air would grow cool and still, and the sky would yawn into twilight. On some nights, when the moon hung low like a golden coin, Elliot would climb the spiral stairs to the top of the lighthouse. The lantern room smelled of old oil and sea air. From up there, everything looked far away and peaceful. The world felt simple, just stars and wind and the hush of waves. Thimble would follow him, paws soft on the steps. She liked to sit beside him and blink slowly at the darkness, as if dreaming with open eyes. And in that silence, Elliot would sometimes whisper, "Good night," not to anyone in particular, perhaps to the sea, or the stars, or the memories that lived quietly inside the walls. Summer brought warm light that lingered late into the evening, casting golden shadows across the floor. The grasses near the cliffs would sway slowly, as though nodding in agreement with the wind. Elliot would sometimes take his tea outside and sit on a worn bench facing the sea, watching the sun set so slowly that it felt like the world had stopped to take a deep breath. Thimble would curl up beside him, her little body a warm weight against his leg. Sometimes she'd twitch her ears at the distant cry of a gull, but mostly she just listened. Elliot would stroke her fur without thinking, in that way people do when they've known peace for a long, long time. Autumn arrived not with a bang, but with a soft hush. The air became crisper, and the sea turned a deeper shade of blue, sometimes steel gray when the clouds rolled in. Leaves from the sparse trees inland would drift past the lighthouse now and then, and Elliot would watch them tumble through the air like sleepy dancers. He liked autumn best. It made everything feel slower, even more quiet. He would light a small fire in the stove and heat soup made from simple things, potatoes, carrots, leeks from the little garden he kept out back. While it simmered, he'd hum old songs, ones with no words, just notes that felt familiar, like home. At night, the wind sometimes knocked gently at the windows, as if it were asking to come in just for a moment. Elliot would tuck himself into his quilt, woolen and heavy, and listen to the sounds of the world, the creak of the beams, the soft sigh of Thimble's breathing, the low rhythm of the sea. Sleep came easily in such a place. There was no need to chase it, no reason to wrestle the day behind. Everything slowed down, everything softened, and dreams, when they came, were quiet things too, memories that wandered through the halls of the mind like candlelight down a corridor. Dreams of walking barefoot through morning fog, or of distant bells ringing from somewhere long ago. One night, as the fire burned low and the stars blinked sleepily above, Elliot sat at his desk with a fresh sheet of paper. The ink in his pen flowed slowly. He wrote, "I think the sea remembers us. I think it watches the lighthouse too." He paused, smiling, then folded the paper in half. He didn't place it in the drawer with the others. This one, he slid beneath a smooth stone on the windowsill, where the breeze could brush against it. Outside, the tide rolled in and out, steady, unchanging, peaceful. Winter came quietly, like a blanket being drawn over the world. There was no harsh wind, no biting cold at first, just a subtle stillness in the air, a deeper hush to the waves, as though even the ocean was tucking itself in for a long rest. The mornings were slower now. Elliot would wake just as the pale sun began to rise over the horizon, casting soft silver light through the frosted windows. He'd wrap himself in a woolen shawl and shuffle across the floor in thick socks, the wooden planks creaking gently under his steps. In the kitchen, he'd warm his hands around a mug of chamomile tea and listen to the kettle sigh on the stove. Thimble spent most of her time near the hearth, her small form curled tightly into a soft ball, tail tucked beneath her nose. Occasionally, she'd stretch out one paw and blink up at Elliot as if to say, "Yes, this is the good part." Outside, the world slowed to a dream. The garden lay quiet beneath a layer of frost. The sea, usually restless, now moved in slow motion, waves rising and falling like deep, steady breaths. A fine dusting of snow sometimes coated the rocks along the shore, and the old path to the beach turned soft and white. Footprints never lasted long. The wind would erase them gently, as if tidying up after each visit. Elliot didn't mind the cold. He liked the way it made everything feel closer, more still. He would spend his afternoons by the window, knitting thick scarves from leftover yarn or reading old stories whose endings he already knew. Time didn't press on him. There were no clocks that mattered. The lighthouse didn't demand anything except to simply be. And still, every evening, as twilight fell like a soft curtain, Elliot climbed the spiral staircase to the lantern room. There, he would light the old lamp, not out of duty, but out of respect. Out of love. The glass panes up there often caught the colors of dusk, lavender and ash and the softest blue, and reflected them back into the sea, as if reminding the ocean that someone was watching. Sometimes snowflakes danced in the light, delicate and slow, like feathers falling from a sky that had grown tired. Elliot would stand for a while, hands in his pockets, and look out at the nothingness. Not empty, just quiet, like the pause between heartbeats, like a deep sigh after a long day. Then he would whisper the same word he had whispered every evening for many, many years. "Still here." And the sea, ever constant, whispered back, "So am I." It happened gradually, as it always did. No fanfare. No sudden bloom. Just a softness to the air, a scent beneath the salt, like earth waking up. Elliot noticed it first in the way the light fell through the window, warmer, rounder, almost golden. It danced differently on the floorboards. The breeze that came through the cracks no longer carried winter's hush, but something gentler, a promise. The days grew a little longer, though Elliot didn't measure them. He simply felt them, like one might feel the quiet return of an old song they hadn't heard in years. Outside, tiny green shoots began to poke their way through the frost-bitten soil behind the lighthouse. The garden was remembering. Thimble noticed it too. She began spending more time at the windowsill again, her ears twitching at the new songs of the birds returning to the cliffs. A pair of them had made a nest in the broken gutter above the kitchen window. Elliot watched them each morning as he sipped his tea, the steam rising in soft spirals like the mist that once rolled over the hills. Inside, everything remained peaceful, but there was a new kind of silence now. Not the stillness of sleep, but the stillness of waiting. The quiet, thoughtful kind. Elliot opened the windows more often. The air was cool, but not sharp. It smelled of damp stone and far-off pine, On some days, he took slow walks to the edge of the cliff, where the sea still moved in patient rhythm, but its color had changed again, brighter, lighter, as if it too were waking up. And then, one morning, something different happened. There was a knock. Just once. Soft. Like someone uncertain if they should disturb the calm. Elliot paused. He wasn't used to visitors. The path to the lighthouse was long and rarely walked. Yet there it was again, a single, quiet knock on the old wooden door, almost lost beneath the sigh of the wind. Thimble was already sitting near the entryway, her tail curled neatly around her paws, her eyes wide and calm, as if she had known someone would come eventually. Elliot opened the door. Standing there was a young woman, wrapped in a long coat the color of driftwood, her hair damp with sea air. She looked travel-worn, but not hurried. In her hands she held a letter. It was folded many times over, its paper soft and creased, as though it had passed through many years to arrive in this moment. Elliot didn't ask her name. He simply stepped aside and said, "You're welcome. Come in." She entered quietly, as if trying not to disturb something sacred. They sat near the fire, and he made 2 cups of tea. The letter remained unopened on the table between them for a long time. Either of them rushed. Outside, the wind brushed past the walls like an old friend passing through. Inside, the lighthouse stood the same as always, watchful, quiet, and gently alive. The letter sat between them like a pebble placed carefully in the center of a still pond, quiet, but full of weight. Elliot didn't ask about it. He never asked more than the world offered. He simply sat across from the visitor, sipping his tea while the fire crackled softly in the stove. The young woman, for her part, seemed in no hurry either. She held her cup with both hands, warming her fingers, her gaze wandering over the room. The bookshelf filled with softened spines, the lighthouse model carved from driftwood, the line of quiet stones on the windowsill. It was a place untouched by time, and yet it felt like it had been waiting for her. Outside, the sea moved steadily. Waves came in, waves went out. The gulls circled high above the cliffs, calling softly into the wind. The air smelled faintly of rosemary and salt. When the tea was nearly gone and the fire had settled into a glowing bed of embers, the woman finally reached for the letter. Her movements were careful, as if the pages might vanish if handled too quickly. She smoothed it flat on the table. Elliot said nothing. Thimble had curled up in her favorite chair, eyes half closed but watching. The woman spoke quietly. "This was written here. I think." Elliot nodded, though she hadn't asked a question. She turned the letter over in her hands. The ink had faded in places, but the writing remained steady, small, neat, unmistakably Elliot's. She read aloud. "I think the sea remembers us. I think it watches the lighthouse too." A soft silence followed. Elliot smiled gently. "I wrote that," he said, "one evening in winter. I left it on the windowsill. I didn't think anyone would find it." The woman nodded, her voice just above a whisper. "My mother kept it. She found it when she was young, visiting this coast, long before I was born. She never said how it came to her. She only said it's from a place where the world is slow and kind. One day, go there when you're ready. She looked up at Elliot then, and for the first time, her expression softened completely. So I came. Elliot's eyes crinkled with something quiet, perhaps memory, perhaps wonder. He leaned back in his chair, and for a while, they just listened to the sea. There was no need to fill the space with noise. Some truths arrive like tides, slow, natural, undeniable. Some meetings don't need a purpose, just presence. Eventually, Elliot stood. He opened the cupboard and took down an extra cup, a little dusty but still good. He poured more tea. A simple offering. A quiet welcome. The young woman smiled and took the cup in both hands once again. And the lighthouse watched. And the sea listened. And the wind moved around them like a story still being told, soft, unhurried, full of meaning yet to come. The days that followed came quietly, as they always did. The young woman, her name was Clara, though she only mentioned it once, settled into the rhythm of the lighthouse with the ease of someone who had always been meant to arrive, just not until now. She didn't speak often, but when she did, her words were gentle, chosen with care, like pebbles placed one by one in a garden path. Elliot liked that. He wasn't used to noise. He didn't need stories told aloud, just shared silence, understood glances, and the soft harmony of two people simply being. Each morning, they would have tea together in the little kitchen. The light would spill across the table, warming the wood and glinting off the old tin teapot. Thimble would curl in her usual spot, now with one eye lazily following Clara as she moved about the room, learning which cupboard held the honey, which drawer held the mismatched spoons. Clara began tending the garden behind the lighthouse. She wore a wide-brimmed hat and gloves that were far too big for her hands. Elliot would watch from the window as she knelt in the soil, patient and unhurried, planting herbs, trimming back the old vines, humming to herself in a voice barely louder than the wind. Sometimes Elliot joined her, offering advice he remembered from long ago, how lavender liked to lean toward the sun, how time thrived when spoken to kindly. Clara listened as if each word were precious, and perhaps they were. In places like this, even the smallest rituals carried weight. In the evenings, they took turns lighting the lamp in the tower. It was Clara who first suggested they go together. And so they did, climbing the spiral stairs side by side, their footsteps slow, steady, echoing softly off the stone. The lantern room welcomed them with its round silence. The view from above was as eternal as ever, sea and sky, endlessly folding into each other. They stood there often, saying little, watching the last light fade from the horizon as the waves below turned silver and black. Sometimes Clara would lean her head against the glass, just breathing, as if the wind might carry her somewhere else. But she always stayed. Elliot, who had spent so many years alone, never once asked her to. He never had to. Spring deepened. Small blossoms appeared along the cliff's edge. The sea sparkled more easily. The air smelled of green things and newness. And still, inside the lighthouse, time moved gently. No rush. No pressure. 2 cups in the kitchen. 2 chairs by the fire. 2 lights in the tower, one old, one new. And the sea remembered. And the lighthouse watched. And the story, quietly, continued. Summer came not with a shout, but with a long, contented sigh. The air grew heavier with salt and sun, and the grasses on the cliffs leaned lazily toward the sea. Everything seemed to stretch out, days, shadows, quiet conversations that didn't need to end. The lighthouse didn't change much, but the light within it softened even more. It became a place not just of keeping watch, but of gentle living. Clara took to walking the shore in the early mornings before the mist had fully lifted. She carried a small woven basket and filled it with things the sea left behind: seed glass in soft shades of green, broken shells shaped like smiles, and smooth stones that felt cool even in the sun. She lined them up on the windowsill above the sink, just beside Elliot's old collection. "It's not about finding anything special," she said one morning, turning a tiny spiral shell in her fingers. "It's just noticing. Being here for what's left behind." Elliot nodded. He understood. He had once thought the lighthouse was a place of waiting. But now, with Clara there, it felt more like a place of gathering, a place where slow moments collected and deepened, quietly becoming something worth keeping. They shared more meals now, simple ones. Elliot taught Clara how to make his favorite lentil stew, and she showed him how to bake bread that rose slowly, patiently, like it had nowhere else to be. They'd eat by the open window in the evenings, with the scent of thyme drifting in from the garden, and the sound of waves gently brushing against the rocks below. Sometimes they spoke, but just as often they didn't. There was comfort in the silence, a sense that everything important was already understood. One afternoon, they found an old rowboat tucked behind the shed, half covered in ivy and sea salt, but still sound. Clara laughed, brushing off the moss. "Do you think she still floats?" They spent 3 days patching its worn hull and painting it a soft, faded blue. On the 4th day, they pushed it into the water and drifted out past the rocks, where the sea swayed slow and deep. Elliot hadn't been out there in years. The wind tousled his hair, and the smell of brine filled his chest. "It's quieter than I remember," he said. Clara smiled, dipping her fingers in the water. "Maybe we've just gotten better at listening." The days passed like that, light, quiet, golden. Evenings brought candlelight and tea. Nights were filled with the low hum of the sea and the comforting creak of the lighthouse beams in the wind. Sometimes, before sleep, Elliot would stand at the window and look out over the horizon. Clara would sit behind him, wrapped in a shawl, her journal resting quietly in her lap. "Do you miss anything?" she asked one night. Elliot thought for a long while before answering. "Sometimes. But I think the lighthouse holds what I need. Not all the memories, just the ones worth remembering." Clara nodded, and they both sat quietly, watching as the stars blinked into place above the dark water. Late summer arrived like a held breath. The days were long and warm, stretching lazily into soft, coral-colored evenings. The sea shimmered more slowly, its surface turning to liquid gold as the sun dipped low. Even the birds flew quieter, as if they too had grown contemplative in the heat. On one such evening, When the sky had turned to velvet and the garden smelled of rosemary and warm soil, Elliot and Clara sat outside near the lighthouse wall, a lantern flickering gently between them. Thimble lay curled at Clara's feet, her ears twitching now and then at a moth's passing wing. The stars were just beginning to reveal themselves, one by one. Shy and distant. The wind was soft, carrying only the hush of the tide far below. Elliot was whittling something, a small piece of driftwood, turning slowly into a boat or maybe a bird. It wasn't clear yet. Clara was scribbling gently into her journal, words flowing with no particular urgency. And then, after a long, quiet pause, Elliot spoke. There was a storm once, long ago. Clara looked up. She didn't ask, she simply listened. I was younger then. The sea turned black and wild. The waves struck the rocks like drums, and the wind. He paused, his eyes distant. It howled like it had a memory it wanted the world to hear. He smiled faintly. I was afraid. I'd only been keeper a few years. I thought the lighthouse might not hold. But I stayed. I lit the lamp. Every hour. All through the night. Clara leaned closer, her voice no louder than the wind. Did anyone come? Elliot nodded slowly. In the morning, there was a ship in the cove. Small, barely floating. A family lost their way in the storm. They saw the light. He ran his thumb along the edge of the driftwood boat. They stayed here a few days. Rested. Ate. We didn't speak much, not the same language. But we smiled. Laughed a little. One of the children gave me a pebble before they left. Said it was lucky. Clara looked toward the windowsill, where a single round stone, smooth, striped, time-worn, sat beside a faded shell and a shard of green sea glass. Elliot followed her gaze and gave a soft chuckle. Still lucky, I suppose. Still here. The stars were fully awake now, crowding the sky in soft silver. Clara reached for a blanket and pulled it around her shoulders. Her voice was barely more than breath. You never wrote that story down? Elliot shook his head. Didn't need to. The lighthouse remembers. So does the sea. They sat a little longer, letting the night settle gently around them. Above, a single shooting star slipped across the sky, quiet as a thought. Clara smiled and closed her journal. Then I'll write it down for both of us. Elliot nodded. That's the way of things now, isn't it? And with that, the two of them sat beneath the ancient sky. Two keepers, two listeners, two quiet lights watching over the sea. And far below, the waves moved in their endless rhythm. Always returning. Always home. The change began slowly, almost shyly. One morning, Clara noticed the wind had shifted. It no longer carried the warm breath of late summer, but something cooler, crisper. The kind of air that made you pull a shawl a little tighter, sip your tea a little slower. The garden began to fade, not all at once, but in small, thoughtful ways. The lavender thinned, the mint turned pale at the edges, and the thyme curled in on itself like it was dreaming of sleep. Clara tended it gently, thanking each plant with soft words as she cut the last of the blossoms and hung them to dry by the stove. Inside, the lighthouse took on a new kind of stillness. Not the loneliness of winter, nor the endless light of summer. This was the stillness of change. The calm between things. The pause before the next breath. Elliot, too, noticed. He began to bring out the thicker blankets, shake the dust from the old kettle, check the windows for drafts. He moved a little slower these days, but his hands were steady, his eyes still bright beneath their quiet folds. One evening, as the sun dipped lower and earlier than before, Clara stood at the top of the lighthouse, the lamp already lit behind her. Below, the sea moved dark and soft, the wind curling her hair around her face. Elliot joined her with 2 mugs of tea. They stood there in silence for a long time. Eventually, Clara spoke. "The days are getting shorter." Elliot nodded. "They always do." "And you?" she asked gently. "Have you always stayed when they changed?" Elliot took a slow sip of tea. The steam rose between them like a memory. "Yes. But not everyone does." Clara looked at him, curious. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The lighthouse had seen people come and go. It had outlasted storms, silence, seasons. And it would continue to. "Sometimes," Elliot said, "people arrive when they need to. And sometimes they leave when they're ready." The words hung in the air, not heavy. Not sad, just true. Like the slow turning of leaves or the tide inching its way out. Clara said nothing, but her hand found his and stayed there. In the following days, she moved about the lighthouse with a kind of tenderness, as though memorizing the texture of each wall, the creak of each step, the way the light curled into the corners at dawn. She didn't say she was going, and Elliot didn't ask. But the lighthouse, it knew. It had always known. And when the morning came, gray and golden, the wind full of whispering leaves, Clara stood by the door, her pack light, her coat warm, her eyes steady. Elliot handed her a small package wrapped in linen and twine. "For when you miss the sea." Clara smiled, a little sadly, a little gratefully. Thimble brushed against her leg in quiet farewell. And then, just like that, she was gone, walking the path that led up the hill and down into the world. Elliot stood at the door for a while. He didn't wave. He just watched. And when the wind rose and the gulls called, he turned back inside. Put the kettle on. Lit the lamp. And sat by the window as the sea continued to speak its slow, unchanging rhythm. And the lighthouse watched. And the sea remembered. And the story waited for the next one. Clara walked down the winding path from the lighthouse, the linen package tucked carefully beneath her coat. The air was cool, and the scent of fallen leaves wrapped around her like a whispered goodbye. She didn't hurry. The world beyond the cliffs was vast and uncertain, but she felt something steady inside, a calm that had grown from the slow days by the sea. As she moved through fields golden with late harvest, the light softened. Shadows lengthened like gentle arms reaching out to hold the earth. She paused at a small brook, where the water hummed quietly over smooth stones. Kneeling, she dipped her hands in and let the coolness wash over her fingers. The sound was familiar, soothing. For a moment, Clara closed her eyes and listened. Listened not just to the water, but to the space inside herself where stories lived, waiting to be told. Her thoughts turned back to the lighthouse and to Elliot, the quiet keeper who had taught her the value of stillness and the strength of waiting. She opened the linen package and found inside a small carved bird, smooth and simple, a keepsake from the lighthouse. She held it close, a reminder that some places and some people stay with us, no matter where we go. With a soft smile, Clara stood and continued her walk into the fading light, carrying the quiet strength of the sea and the lighthouse within her heart. Clara's journey carried her through small villages where the air smelled of wood smoke and fresh bread. People greeted her with nods and quiet smiles, their lives woven with the same slow rhythm she'd come to cherish. She found places to rest, old inns with creaky floors and warm hearths. She sat by windows watching leaves dance in the wind, and sometimes she wrote letters she never sent, stories spilling from her heart like gentle streams. Though the road was new and unknown, Clara felt less alone than she expected. The memories of the lighthouse, the soft light, Elliot's quiet presence, the sea's endless song, were like steady companions walking beside her. At night, she looked up at stars she'd learned to recognize, tracing patterns as if they could guide her home. One evening, in a small town nestled between hills and forests, Clara met a storyteller. An old woman with eyes full of kindness and a voice like warm honey. They shared tea, and Clara listened as the woman told tales of places far away and times long past. "Every story has a place," the woman said softly, "and every journey brings us closer to our own." Clara smiled, feeling the truth of those words settle deep inside. The road ahead was still long, but she carried with her the quiet strength of the lighthouse, and the promise that wherever she went, she was never truly lost. One cool evening, after a long day of walking through softly rolling hills, Clara found herself beneath a sky sprinkled with stars. The air was crisp and carried the faint scent of pine and earth. She settled on a smooth stone beside a quiet stream, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The carved bird from the lighthouse lay softly in her palm, a small weight of comfort and memory. As the water whispered over pebbles and the night wrapped around her like a gentle blanket, Clara allowed her thoughts to drift. She thought of Elliot, sitting by the window with the lamp's glow behind him. She imagined the steady creak of the lighthouse stairs and the quiet rhythm of the sea. A sense of peace settled in her chest, the kind that comes not from arriving, but from knowing you are on the right path. Under the vast, starry sky, Clara whispered a soft promise to herself, to carry the calm she found by the sea wherever her journey led. And with that, she closed her eyes, letting sleep come like the tide, slow, steady, and sure. When morning came, it spilled gold over the hills and painted the world in gentle light. Clara woke to the soft song of birds and the faint rustle of leaves. She stretched and rose slowly, feeling the cool earth beneath her feet. The carved bird she kept close, a talisman of the lighthouse's quiet strength. Today, the road ahead felt open, inviting. She packed her few belongings with calm care, tucking the bird safely inside her bag. As she walked, the village behind her faded into the soft haze of distance, and the path wound downward through fields of tall grass and wild flowers. Every step was measured, thoughtful, a meditation in motion. Sometimes she paused to listen, to the hum of bees, the whisper of wind, the far-off murmur of life unfolding. Clara didn't know where the road would end. And perhaps she didn't need to. For now, she was content simply to walk, to carry the lighthouse light within her, and to trust the quiet rhythm of her own heart. The days passed slowly, like the soft drifting of leaves in a calm breeze. Clara found comfort in the simple sounds of the countryside, the rustle of grass underfoot, the distant call of birds, the gentle murmur of a nearby brook. Each sound became a quiet companion on her solitary path. She walked through meadows where wildflowers nodded in the breeze, their colors muted but still full of life. Sometimes she stopped to trace patterns in the earth, feeling the texture of soil between her fingers, a reminder of roots, growth, and patience. At night, she found shelter beneath open skies, wrapping herself in blankets and gazing up at stars that seemed closer here, brighter and more countless than she'd ever seen before. In those moments, Clara felt a deep connection, not just to the world around her, but to the calm spirit she had discovered within herself. The carved bird rested beside her, a small talisman whispering of the lighthouse and the sea's endless rhythm. And though the road stretched on, uncertain and wide, Clara knew she was never truly alone. The wind carried her stories softly, like a lullaby, guiding her onward. Days blended softly into one another, each carrying its own quiet rhythm. Clara walked with no hurry, letting the world reveal itself in small moments. Dew sparkling on grass blades, the distant murmur of a village waking up, the slow dance of shadows under ancient oaks. She met few people, and those she did were gentle souls, their smiles warm but words few. She welcomed the silence between conversations, savoring the space to think and simply be. In the evenings, she often found a quiet spot to sit, watching as the sun dipped low, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and amber. The carved bird from the lighthouse rested beside her, a silent reminder of the calm she carried inside. Sometimes, Clara would close her eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her and the vastness of the sky above. In those moments, she felt connected to something timeless and steady, like the lighthouse watching over the sea. Though the road stretched endlessly ahead, Clara no longer felt uncertain. She had found a gentle strength in the slow unfolding of days and the quiet promise of the journey itself. With each new dawn, Clara felt the world whisper its secrets a little more clearly. The trees shared stories in the rustle of their leaves. The breeze carried memories from faraway places. And the earth beneath her feet seemed to pulse with gentle life. Sometimes, as she wandered through quiet forests or crossed sun-dappled fields, Clara paused to listen, not just with her ears, but with her whole being. She learned to hear the soft echoes of time passing, the slow turning of seasons, and the steady beat of her own heart. The carved bird from the lighthouse remained a steady companion, tucked safely in her bag, a symbol of light and home no matter where she roamed. Though her journey stretched far beyond the cliffs she once knew, Clara carried with her the same quiet hope that had guided her there, the hope that in stillness and patience there is a deep, unshakable peace. And so she walked, step by step, through the endless unfolding of days, each one a gentle promise of something quietly new. As evening settled softly around her, Clara found a gentle clearing nestled among tall trees. The sky above was a deep indigo, scattered with tiny stars blinking slowly like distant, familiar lanterns. She spread out her worn shawl on the cool grass and sat down, breathing in the crisp night air mixed with the faint scent of pine and earth. The carved bird rested lightly in her palm, a warm reminder of the lighthouse's steady glow and the quiet strength she had gathered there. The world around her hummed with soft sounds, the rustling leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the whisper of the night breeze weaving through the branches. Clara closed her eyes and let the peace settle deep within her. In the silence, she felt connected to the earth beneath her, to the sky above, and to the slow, steady rhythm of her own heart. With a soft smile, she leaned back and let the stars watch over her, knowing that no matter where the road led, this moment of calm would always be hers to carry. The night stretched wide and deep, a velvet canvas dotted with stars that shimmered softly like distant lanterns flickering in the vastness. Clara lay back on the cool grass, her head resting gently against a moss-covered stone. The world around her was quiet, save for the soft chorus of the night, the gentle rustling of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the whisper of the breeze weaving through the branches above. In her palm, the carved bird felt smooth and warm, a comforting weight that tethered her thoughts to the lighthouse and the steady glow of its lamp. It reminded her of the calm strength Elliot had carried through the long nights, and the way the sea's endless rhythm had settled like a steady heartbeat in her own chest. She breathed deeply, the cool air filling her lungs and settling into her bones. With each slow breath, her thoughts softened, drifting like clouds across the sky. She thought of the journey she had taken, the winding paths through quiet villages, the endless fields kissed by sunlight, the nights spent under open skies. Though the road had been long and at times uncertain, Clara felt a growing sense of peace. She understood now that the journey itself was a kind of home, a place where she could carry the light she'd found at the lighthouse, no matter where she wandered. Her eyes traced the constellations overhead, patterns she'd learned to recognize and now cherished. She whispered a soft thanks to the stars, to the earth, and to the unseen guides who had led her here. The night wrapped around her like a gentle embrace, soft and sure. Sleep began to pull at her lids, a quiet invitation to rest. Before she drifted off, Clara held the carved bird close to her heart and made a promise to carry this calm light inside her always, to trust in the slow unfolding of days, and to remember that even in stillness, there is a journey waiting to be lived. And beneath the velvet sky, with the stars as her silent witnesses, Clara slipped gently into sleep, peaceful, steady, and full of quiet hope. When the first pale light of dawn crept softly over the hills, Clara stirred gently from her sleep beneath the open sky. The cool air wrapped around her like a tender whisper, carrying the faint scent of dew-kissed grass and distant wildflowers. She stretched slowly, feeling the earth solid and reassuring beneath her, and opened her eyes to the soft blush of morning spilling across the horizon. The stars faded one by one, making way for the warm glow of the rising sun. Clara sat up, pulling her shawl close and reaching into her bag to hold the carved bird again. A small piece of home nestled within her hands. It felt lighter this morning, somehow filled with the quiet promise of a new day. She breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the fresh, cool air and letting it settle calm and steady inside her chest. The road ahead lay bathed in soft light, winding gently through fields of golden grass and wildflowers swaying quietly in the morning breeze. There was no rush, no urgent call to hurry, only the gentle unfolding of the day, a quiet invitation to walk with open heart and steady steps. Clara rose, brushing the earth from her clothes with slow, deliberate movements. She tucked the carved bird safely back into her bag and set off down the path once more. As she walked, the world awakened around her, the songs of birds weaving through the crisp air, the soft rustling of leaves, the distant murmur of a village stirring to life. Each step was a meditation, a quiet conversation with the earth beneath her feet and the sky above. Though the journey was still long, Clara carried with her the light of the lighthouse, the calm of the sea, and the steady rhythm of her own heart. And with each gentle step, she moved closer to the quiet peace she sought, one moment at a time. The morning light grew warmer as Clara continued along the winding path, her footsteps steady and calm. The world around her was alive with soft sounds, the gentle hum of bees visiting wildflowers, the rustle of leaves stirred by a delicate breeze, and the occasional distant laughter of children playing in a nearby village. Clara paused beside a small brook, its clear water sparkling as it trickled over smooth stones. She knelt and let her fingers dip into the cool current, feeling its gentle flows soothe her tired limbs. The brook's quiet song was like a lullaby, a reminder of the constant movement beneath the still surface of things. As she rose, Clara looked up at the sky, now a bright canvas of soft blues and cottony clouds drifting lazily by. She felt the warmth of the sun on her face and allowed herself a small, peaceful smile. Along the way, she noticed the subtle beauty of the world, the delicate curve of a leaf, the faint scent of wild herbs in the air, the way the light danced on the edges of a spider's web. Each detail was a quiet marvel, a reminder that even in the simplest moments, there is wonder to be found. She walked slowly, savoring the rhythm of her breath and the gentle cadence of her steps on the earth. With every moment, she felt more connected to the journey itself, to the unfolding story written not in grand events but in quiet, steady presence. Clara reached a fork in the path where a wooden sign pointed in two directions, one toward a distant village nestled among rolling hills, the other toward a dense forest that promised shade and mystery. She paused, considering her choice. The journey was hers to shape, and each path held its own quiet promise. With a calm heart, Clara chose the path into the forest, drawn by the soothing embrace of the trees and the soft shadows that danced beneath their branches. As she stepped beneath the canopy, the air grew cooler and filled with the rich scent of earth and leaves. The forest welcomed her with a hush, a gentle invitation to slow down even further and listen deeply. Clara breathed in the peace of the woods, feeling the quiet pulse of life all around her. And as she walked deeper into the forest's embrace, she knew that every step, no matter where it led, was part of the gentle unfolding of her story. The forest welcomed Clara with open arms, its canopy filtering sunlight into delicate patterns on the soft earth beneath her feet. Each step she took was cushioned by a bed of fallen leaves, their crispness muted by time and gentle decay. Around her, the woods whispered stories in every rustle, a language only those who listen closely can understand. The breeze carried hints of pine and moss, and the distant trill of a songbird floated through the air like a tender melody. Clara moved slowly, savoring the cool shade and the feeling of quiet solitude that wrapped around her like a soft shawl. The carved bird nestled safely in her bag felt like a talisman, a small piece of the lighthouse's steady light traveling with her into the unknown. As she wandered, she noticed the subtle life thriving in this peaceful world. Tiny mushrooms clustered at the base of an ancient oak, a flash of red as a squirrel darted through the underbrush, delicate spiderwebs glistening with droplets of morning dew. She paused beside a crystal-clear stream that wound through the forest floor, the water gently babbling over smooth stones worn by time. Kneeling, Clara cupped her hands and drank deeply, the coolness refreshing and grounding. The quietness of the forest was different from the vast openness of the sea, but equally comforting. Here, life felt intimate and close, each leaf, each breath of wind, a part of the same slow, unfolding rhythm. Clara sat for a while on a fallen log, her thoughts drifting like the soft clouds above. She felt a deep calm settle over her, a gentle assurance that, no matter where the road led, she carried the light of the lighthouse inside her. She closed her eyes and listened, to the forest's heartbeat, to her own steady breath, to the quiet music of the world at rest. And in that moment, beneath the whispering woods, Clara found a profound peace, a quiet place within herself where the journey and the stillness were one. Clara rose from the fallen log, feeling refreshed by the forest's quiet embrace. The path ahead wound gently between towering trees whose branches swayed softly in the mild breeze. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns that danced upon the mossy ground. She walked with a slow, steady pace, her senses attuned to the subtle details. The faint scent of wildflowers tucked beneath ferns, the gentle rustle of a distant deer stepping cautiously through the underbrush, the occasional chirp of a hidden bird. With every breath, Clara felt more connected, not just to the forest, but to herself. The carved bird nestled safely inside her bag felt like a secret companion, a steady reminder of the lighthouse's enduring light and the calm strength she had discovered within. Further along the path, she found a small clearing where wildflowers bloomed in soft clusters of lavender, pale yellow, and white. The gentle hum of bees moved lazily from bloom to bloom, and the air was thick with the sweet scent of nectar and earth. Clara sat down quietly among the flowers, folding her hands in her lap. She closed her eyes and let the peacefulness of the place settle deep inside her. Here, in the heart of the forest, time seemed to slow, stretching out like a gentle sigh. Her thoughts drifted softly, memories of the lighthouse, the steady glow of the lamp, the sound of waves brushing against the shore, and Elliot's calm presence. Though she was far from that place now, the light she carried inside was never dim. She breathed deeply, feeling the rhythm of the earth beneath her and the pulse of the forest around her. The journey was long, but every quiet moment, every gentle step, was part of the same unfolding story. Clara smiled softly, knowing that the path she walked was hers alone to follow, and that wherever it led, she would carry the quiet light of home within her heart. After resting among the soft wildflowers, Clara rose with a peaceful heart and continued along the winding path. The trees stood tall and silent sentinels, their leaves whispering secrets only the patient could hear. The light shifted softly as the sun moved across the sky, dappling the forest floor with ever-changing patterns of gold and green. Clara noticed the quiet elegance of a spider's web, its silken threads shimmering like delicate lace in the afternoon light. Everywhere she looked, life moved quietly. Ants marched steadily along fallen twigs. A pair of birds flitted playfully through the branches, and somewhere nearby, the gentle gurgle of a stream promised refreshment. Clara breathed in deeply, savoring the clean, earthy scent of the woods, feeling the calm wash over her like a gentle wave. The carved bird nestled close in her bag was a constant comfort, a symbol of the lighthouse's unwavering light guiding her through both storm and calm. She paused again at the edge of a small pond, its surface smooth and still like polished glass. The reflection of the sky and trees above created a perfect mirror, inviting Clara to sit and simply be. She settled on a mossy stone beside the water and let her thoughts drift with the quiet ripples. The world around her was still, but alive with soft sounds and gentle movements, the subtle pulse of nature's slow, steady breath. As she sat, Clara felt the weight of her journey lighten. The road might be long and unknown, but here, in the embrace of the forest, she found a quiet strength, a deep well of peace that no distance or time could take away. With a small, contented smile, she closed her eyes and let the forest's gentle secrets wash over her, knowing that wherever she went, the light of the lighthouse, and the calm it inspired, would always be with her. The sun began its slow descent, casting a warm, golden glow through the forest canopy. Shadows lengthened, stretching across the soft moss and fallen leaves like silent, gentle fingers. Clara walked more slowly now, savoring each step as the air grew cooler and the sounds of the forest softened. Birds settled into their nests, and the faint rustle of small creatures moving through the underbrush became the forest's evening lullaby. She found a cozy nook beneath a large oak tree, its wide branches forming a protective embrace overhead. Settling down on the soft earth, Clara pulled her shawl around her shoulders and reached into her bag to hold the carved bird once again. The small wooden figure felt warm and familiar in her hand, a comforting reminder of home and light. Above, the sky shifted from gold to deep indigo, and the first stars twinkled gently through the leaves. Clara's breath slowed, matching the tranquil rhythm of the forest night. She closed her eyes and listened to the whisper of the wind through the branches, the gentle croak of a distant frog, and the steady beating of her own heart. In this quiet moment, surrounded by the soft pulse of life, Clara felt a deep, steady calm settle within her. A calm that told her no matter where her journey led, she carried the lighthouse's light inside her, a light that would guide her through every shadow and into every dawn. With a peaceful smile, she let her eyes drift closed, welcoming sleep like a gentle tide. The forest night was quiet and gentle, a soft symphony of nature's whispers. Clara lay beneath the wide canopy of ancient trees, the cool earth beneath her steady and reassuring. Above, the stars shone like distant lanterns, their light flickering softly through the leaves. Wrapped in her shawl, she felt the gentle rise and fall of her breath blending with the slow rhythm of the night. The carved bird lay close by, its smooth surface catching the faint moonlight, a small beacon of comfort and hope. As sleep began to settle over her, Clara's thoughts drifted softly. Memories of the lighthouse's warm glow, the endless sea, and Elliot's quiet presence. She felt those moments wrap around her like a gentle embrace, filling her with peace. Her eyelids grew heavy, and with a final deep breath, she surrendered to the calm, letting herself fall into a deep, restful sleep beneath the watchful stars. In the stillness of the night, the forest held her gently, and the light inside her shone steady and true, a quiet promise of new days, new journeys, and the endless unfolding of gentle moments. The first soft light of dawn filtered through the leafy canopy, painting the forest floor in warm hues of gold and rose. Clara stirred slowly, the cool morning air brushing softly against her skin like a whispered greeting. She sat up carefully, stretching her limbs and taking a deep breath of the fresh, earthy scent that filled the quiet woods. The carved bird rested comfortably in her bag, a small piece of home she carried close to her heart. Outside the forest, the world was beginning to wake, the distant call of a bird, the gentle rustle of leaves in the morning breeze, the faint murmur of a stream flowing nearby. Clara rose and brushed the soft moss from her clothes, feeling rested and calm. With the new day came new steps to take, new paths to explore. As she set off down the winding forest trail, the light grew brighter, illuminating the way ahead. The forest, still wrapped in the gentle hush of morning, seemed to breathe with her, alive, patient, and steady. Clara smiled softly to herself, knowing that every step, no matter how small, was part of the quiet unfolding of her journey. And with the light of the lighthouse carried softly within her, she walked forward, ready to meet whatever the day might bring. The dawn unfolded slowly, its gentle fingers stretching across the sky, turning deep blues into soft shades of pink and gold. Clara rose from her resting place beneath the oak tree, feeling the cool, damp earth beneath her feet and the fresh scent of morning dew in the air. She pulled her shawl a little tighter around her shoulders and took a moment to drink in the peacefulness of the forest waking around her. Birds began their morning songs, a delicate chorus that filled the air with quiet life. Somewhere nearby, a small brook babbled over stones, its voice a soothing thread woven into the tapestry of the day. With steady steps, Clara began her walk again, the path winding gently through trees that towered above her like ancient guardians. The forest was alive with soft sounds, the flutter of wings, the scurrying of small creatures hidden in the underbrush, the rustle of leaves as the morning breeze stirred the branches. Each step felt like a quiet meditation, a slow dance with the earth beneath her feet. Clara noticed the subtle beauty in everything, the way the sunlight caught on a spider's web, making it glisten like a fragile necklace, the gentle sway of wildflowers in a breeze too soft to feel, the quiet determination of an ant carrying a tiny leaf along the mossy log. She paused by the brook to drink, letting the cool water refresh her lips and hands. The carved bird rested lightly in her bag, its presence a constant reminder of the lighthouse's steady light and the quiet hope that had carried her this far. As the forest path began to climb gently upward, Clara felt the air grow crisper and the light more clear. Through the trees, she caught glimpses of distant hills bathed in morning light, a soft, rolling sea of green and gold stretching toward the horizon. The journey ahead was still long, but Clara's heart was calm and steady. She knew that the path itself was part of the story, the slow unfolding of days and moments, the quiet discoveries made in the stillness. She took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs and settle in her chest. With the light of the lighthouse held gently inside her, Clara stepped forward, ready to meet the day with a quiet strength and an open heart. The forest began to thin as Clara climbed steadily upward, the trees giving way to open meadows bathed in soft sunlight. Each step brought a widening view, a patchwork of green fields and distant hills that rolled like waves beneath a pale blue sky. Clara paused on a gentle rise, letting the breeze wash over her, cool and fragrant with wild flowers and fresh grass. The carved bird rested in her bag, a familiar weight that brought comfort amid the vastness. She breathed deeply, savoring the quiet peace of this new place. The world here felt open and endless, yet still wrapped in the soft embrace of morning calm. A small butterfly flitted past, delicate and slow, as if inviting her to move with the same gentle rhythm. Clara smiled, letting her steps soften, her pace slow. She thought of the lighthouse, the steadfast glow that had guided her through dark nights and uncertain paths, and felt the steady light within her grow warm and bright. The hills before her promised new discoveries, but also quiet moments to simply be. Clara welcomed the stillness, knowing that sometimes the greatest journeys are those taken in silence and ease. She continued onward, each footfall a gentle echo on the soft earth, carrying her toward the horizon where sky and land met in a calm, unbroken line. And as the sun climbed higher, warming the world around her, Clara felt a deep, unfolding peace, one that grew with every step, every breath, and every quiet moment beneath the open sky. Clara's footsteps were soft against the earth, the path winding gently through the rolling hills like a quiet invitation. The morning sun bathed the landscape in warm light, casting long shadows that stretched lazily over the grass. The air was fresh, filled with the subtle fragrance of wildflowers and the faint hum of bees moving from bloom to bloom. As she walked, Clara let her gaze wander over the gentle curves of the land, the way the hills rose and fell in a steady rhythm, like waves frozen in time. Here and there, clusters of trees stood like quiet guardians, their leaves whispering softly in the breeze. The sky above was a vast expanse of pale blue, dotted with fluffy clouds drifting slowly, as if carried by the very breath of the earth. Clara felt a deep calm settle over her, a quiet joy in simply moving through this peaceful world. She stopped briefly by a cluster of wildflowers, kneeling to admire their delicate petals, soft purples, pale yellows, and gentle whites, all swaying gently in the breeze. She reached out her hand slowly, letting a butterfly rest briefly on her finger, its fragile wings fluttering softly. The carved bird in her bag felt warm, a small talisman of the lighthouse's steady light guiding her steps. Though the journey was long, Clara felt a quiet strength growing within her, a steady flame fed by the beauty and calm surrounding her. As she continued walking, the hills rolled on endlessly, a gentle sea of green and gold beneath the brightening sky. The world felt vast yet intimate, a place where every breath, every step, was a part of the unfolding story of quiet moments and slow discovery. Clara's heart was light, her mind at ease. The path ahead might be unknown, but she carried with her the steady light inside, a quiet beacon guiding her gently forward. Clara's footsteps moved slowly but surely as she descended the gentle hills, feeling the soft grass beneath her feet and the cool breeze brushing her face. The village she had seen from afar now appeared closer, a cluster of warm rooftops and winding paths nestled among tall trees. The light of the morning sun bathed everything in a golden glow, making the world seem gentle and full of quiet promises. Clara inhaled deeply, the fresh air carrying the subtle scent of pine and wildflowers, filling her with calm energy. She thought about the lighthouse and Elliot, the steadfast guardian of the sea, who watched the waves tirelessly. Though she had left the lighthouse behind for now, its steady light remained within her, a beacon guiding her steps through every new place. As Clara entered the village, the sounds of daily life drifted softly to her ears. Children's laughter, the clinking of pottery, the distant call of a market vendor. The village felt alive, yet peaceful, a place where time moved slowly and every moment was savored. She wandered along the cobblestone streets, admiring the simple beauty of wooden homes with their flower-filled window boxes and ivy-covered walls. A gentle warmth blossomed in her chest. This place, like the forest and hills before, was part of her unfolding journey. Clara found a quiet bench beneath a blooming apple tree and sat down, pulling the carved bird from her bag to hold it gently. It was more than a keepsake. It was a symbol of light, hope, and the steady strength she had discovered within herself. As the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, Clara closed her eyes and listened to the rustle of leaves, the soft murmur of voices, and the distant crash of waves against the shore. And in that moment, beneath the blooming branches and with the world around her alive with gentle sounds, Clara knew her journey was far from over. But whatever paths lay ahead, she carried the lighthouse's light deep in her heart, steady, warm, and unending. As the golden light softened into hues of pink and lavender, Clara remained seated beneath the apple tree, feeling the gentle pulse of the village settling into evening. The air cooled slightly, carrying the faint scent of baked bread and fresh herbs from nearby homes. Children's laughter faded into quiet whispers as families gathered inside for their evening meals. The cobblestone streets grew still, save for the soft footsteps of an old man walking his dog, the gentle clinking of lanterns being lit, and the distant murmur of waves crashing softly on the shore. Clara's fingers traced the smooth surface of the carved bird in her hand, the familiar shape grounding her as she breathed deeply. She felt a profound peace, a sense of belonging that stretched beyond this moment, connecting her to the lighthouse, to the sea, and to the steady rhythm of life itself. Slowly, she rose and began to stroll through the village's narrow lanes, her footsteps light and unhurried. Lanterns flickered in windows, casting warm pools of light that danced softly on the stone walls. The scent of jasmine drifted through the air, sweet and calming. Ahead, the village square held a small gathering, a few villagers sharing stories and songs under the twilight sky. Clara paused to listen, the gentle music weaving into the evening air like a lullaby. Though the village was new, and her journey far from complete, Clara felt a quiet certainty within her. Wherever she traveled, the light she carried, the steadfast glow of the lighthouse, would guide her through every shadow and into every dawn. With a soft smile, she continued her walk, the night wrapping around her like a gentle embrace, full of promise and peace. The village grew still under a blanket of stars, each one twinkling softly in the deep indigo sky. Clara found a quiet spot near the edge of the village, where she could see the distant shimmer of the sea meeting the horizon. The night air was cool and fragrant with blooming night flowers, their delicate scents weaving through the gentle breeze. Cicadas hummed a soft, steady song, nature's quiet lullaby. Clara settled onto a smooth stone, drawing her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The carved bird rested gently in her palm, its familiar shape a comforting presence in the vast stillness. She closed her eyes, breathing in the calm of the night. The lighthouse's light, though far away, seemed to pulse softly inside her, a steady beacon of hope and strength. Her thoughts drifted like the slow-moving clouds above, filled with memories of the sea's endless rhythm and Elliot's quiet watch. A feeling of deep peace settled in her heart, a reminder that no matter where her journey led, she carried the light, and the lighthouse's steady watchfulness within. The night embraced her gently, and Clara felt herself drifting into restful sleep beneath the stars, cradled by the quiet magic of the world around her. As the first rays of dawn stretched gently across the sky, Clara awoke feeling refreshed and calm. The village was just beginning to stir, the soft murmur of voices, the clinking of breakfast dishes, and the faint scent of freshly baked bread floated through the cool morning air. She rose from her resting place near the village's edge, the grass still damp with dew. Pulling her shawl snug around her shoulders, Clara took a deep breath and gazed out toward the sea shimmering in the distance. The carved bird nestled safely in her bag, a small talisman of the lighthouse's light she carried with her always. Today felt full of quiet promise, as if the gentle unfolding of her journey would bring new moments of peace and discovery. With steady steps, Clara began walking back toward the village, ready to greet whatever the day might bring. The path ahead was open and wide, the soft light of morning guiding her forward. Every step was a calm reminder that no matter where she wandered, the light inside her, the steady glow of the lighthouse, would never fade. It was a beacon of hope, courage, and endless possibility. And so, with the sun warming her face and the gentle breeze at her back, Clara embraced the new day, ready to explore, to listen, and to carry the quiet light of the sea wherever her journey led. The dawn broke gently over the village, like a soft sigh escaping the night. Clara awoke slowly, wrapped in the cool embrace of early morning. The sky above was painted in pale shades of lavender and blush pink, the clouds drifting lazily as if reluctant to leave the quietness of the night behind. She lay for a moment, listening to the subtle sounds of the village waking up, the low murmur of voices exchanging morning greetings, the clinking of crockery as families prepared breakfast, the distant bark of a dog eager to greet the day. All these small sounds blended into a gentle chorus of life, calm, steady, and reassuring. Pulling her shawl a little tighter around her shoulders, Clara rose to her feet. The grass beneath her shoes was still moist with dew, cool and fresh against her skin. She inhaled deeply, savoring the crisp morning air tinged with the scent of blooming wildflowers and freshly baked bread drifting from the village ovens. Before stepping toward the village center, Clara paused to look out over the fields stretching beyond. The hills rolled softly like waves of green velvet, dotted with bursts of color from wildflowers swaying gently in the morning breeze. Far beyond, the sea glittered faintly in the distance, a silver ribbon where the sky met the water. The carved wooden bird nestled safely in her bag felt like a small heart beating in time with her own, a quiet symbol of the lighthouse's light that she carried inside her. That light had been her guide through long nights, a steady flame amidst uncertainty. Now, as the new day unfolded, it was a gentle promise that she was never truly alone. With slow, deliberate steps, Clara moved toward the village, letting her senses soak in every detail. She noticed the way the sunlight caught on the dewdrops clinging to spider webs strung between branches, turning them into tiny prisms shimmering with colors. She watched a pair of sparrows flitting among the rooftops, their soft chirps greeting the morning like a whispered song. As she passed by small cottages, Clara caught glimpses of the villagers beginning their day, an elderly woman tending to her herb garden, a man carrying firewood stacked neatly by the door, children stretching and yawning before running off to play. There was a rhythm here, a simple flow of life that felt comforting and true. Clara's heart swelled with a quiet gratitude. Though her journey was far from over, here, in this peaceful village beneath the vast morning sky, she found a moment of rest, a space to breathe and simply be. She made her way to a small bench shaded by an old chestnut tree, its broad leaves rustling softly overhead. Sitting down, Clara reached into her bag and gently took out the carved bird. Turning it over in her hands, she felt the smoothness of the wood and the careful craftsmanship, a reminder that light, even the smallest flicker, could be a powerful guide. Closing her eyes for a moment, Clara allowed herself to imagine the lighthouse's beam cutting through the darkest storms, a steadfast guardian watching over the sea. She felt that same strength within herself now, not as a burden, but as a quiet assurance that whatever lay ahead, she could face it with calm and courage. Opening her eyes, Clara smiled softly. The morning was young, full of gentle possibilities. She didn't need to rush or hurry. The path would reveal itself in time, step by step, moment by moment. Rising from the bench, she continued her slow walk through the village, greeting neighbors with a gentle nod and kind smile. She paused at the edge of the marketplace where fresh fruits and flowers were just beginning to be displayed, the colors bright and vivid in the morning sun. A soft breeze stirred the air again, carrying with it the scent of salt from the distant sea and the faint melody of a fiddle playing somewhere nearby. The world around her felt alive with quiet joy and soft promise. With the lighthouse's light shining steadily inside her, Clara stepped forward into the new day, calm, hopeful, and ready for whatever gentle adventures awaited. Clara wandered slowly through the village, each step light and measured, like the soft breath of a morning breeze. The air was filled with warm light, gently touching the leaves of the trees and the stone cobblestones beneath her feet. She breathed in the fresh air, carrying faint hints of salty sea spray drifting from the distant shore. Along the narrow streets, small cottages stood covered in ivy and blooming flowers, as if quietly guarding the peace of this tranquil home. Through open windows, soft voices drifted out, gentle laughter and the faint clinking of dishes, the quiet morning ritual that gave the village a sense of warmth and belonging. In one courtyard, an elderly woman tended her flowers carefully, nurturing each bud with loving hands. Clara smiled softly and greeted her quietly, feeling the slow rhythm of time here, where there was no hurry, no worry, only the gentle flow of moments. She turned down a narrow lane leading to a small orchard of apple trees. The fruits hung heavy on the branches like golden sunlit jewels, tempting with their warm glow. Clara reached out to touch a ripe apple, feeling the morning's gentle warmth wrap around her like a soft blanket. Nearby, a pair of children played, their voices bright and lively but never loud enough to break the village's calm. Clara watched them and felt a tender joy bloom quietly inside her chest. Continuing her walk, she reached a small pond bordered by weeping willows. The water was clear as glass, reflecting the sky and the dancing leaves above. Clara sat on a smooth stone by the shore and spent several quiet minutes simply watching the slow play of light and shadow. In that peaceful moment, her thoughts drifted to the lighthouse and Elliot, his quiet dedication and steady watchfulness. She understood then that the lighthouse's light was more than just a guide for ships on the sea. It was a symbol of the inner strength that helped her move through dark times. Rising from the pond's edge, Clara felt the same softness in the world around her, as if nature itself was whispering, "Step by step, no rush. Allow yourself to feel each moment fully." And so she did. She walked slowly, with an open heart and clear mind, accepting the world as it was, gentle, calm, and full of quiet beauty. As Clara continued her slow walk, she soon found herself approaching the heart of the village, the small, sunlit square where villagers gathered to share their daily moments. The square was framed by low stone walls and shaded by a towering old oak tree, its wide branches stretching out like welcoming arms. The soft murmur of voices filled the air, punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter. A few market stalls stood along the edges, displaying fresh fruits, hand-woven baskets, and bundles of herbs tied with twine. The colors were soft and natural, warm yellows, deep greens, and the gentle purple of lavender swaying in the light breeze. Clara paused beside a stall where a kind-faced woman arranged ripe peaches and plums, their skins glowing like jewels in the morning sun. The woman smiled warmly, offering Clara a small piece of bread topped with honey, a simple gesture of kindness that felt like a gentle embrace. Taking the bread, Clara thanked her softly, the sweetness lingering on her tongue. It was in these small moments, a shared smile, a quiet offering, that the village's true spirit was revealed. Here, life moved slowly, with care and connection woven through every gesture. She found a bench beneath the oak tree and sat down, letting the warmth of the sun spread through her. Around her, The village breathed with soft life, the distant clink of a blacksmith's hammer, the gentle chatter of neighbors catching up, the rustle of leaves stirred by a mild breeze. Clara's thoughts drifted back to the lighthouse. She imagined the steady beam sweeping across dark waters, a calm light cutting through storms and uncertainty. That same light now lived within her, a quiet strength she could carry wherever she went. Closing her eyes briefly, Clara allowed herself to rest in the calm of the moment. The world was peaceful here, and for a little while, so was she. When she opened her eyes, the sky had turned a clear, bright blue. She stood slowly, ready to explore more of the village, feeling refreshed and steady, as if each step forward was guided by the lighthouse's unwavering glow. After leaving the village square, Clara wandered down a narrow, winding path shaded by tall poplar trees. The sunlight filtered softly through the leaves, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. The air was warm but gentle, carrying the faint scent of wild herbs and freshly turned earth. She found herself drawn to a small garden tucked behind a low stone wall, bursting with lavender, thyme, and rosemary. The plants swayed slightly in the breeze, releasing their soothing fragrances into the quiet afternoon. Clara stepped inside, the crunch of gravel beneath her feet soft and steady. Sitting on a wooden bench under a blooming lilac bush, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The gentle hum of bees collecting nectar filled the air, mixing with the distant call of a songbird. It was a peaceful sanctuary, a hidden corner where time seemed to slow even more. Her thoughts drifted like clouds across the sky, settling on memories of the lighthouse and the steady light Elliot tended. She felt a profound connection, as if that light was a thread weaving through every place she visited, tying together the calm of the sea with the gentle pulse of this village. Clara opened her eyes and smiled softly. She reached into her bag and pulled out the carved wooden bird, turning it slowly in her hands. It was smooth and warm from her touch, a small reminder that even the quietest things could carry deep meaning. The afternoon stretched lazily before her, and Clara felt no rush to move. She let herself simply be, present in the moment, wrapped in the soft embrace of the day's warmth and quiet. As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village rooftops, Clara stood and began to walk back toward the sea. The lighthouse awaited her there, a steadfast sentinel watching over both land and water, a beacon of hope in the fading light. With each step, the gentle rhythm of the village and the steady pulse of the lighthouse light filled her with calm certainty. Wherever her journey would lead next, she knew she carried that quiet strength inside her, a light that would never dim. The sun dipped slowly below the horizon, casting a warm amber glow that softened the edges of the village. Shadows stretched long across the cobblestones, and the air cooled to a gentle hush. Clara walked toward the shoreline, where the steady pulse of the lighthouse light began to glow softly against the twilight sky. The sea was calm now, its surface a dark mirror reflecting the first stars that twinkled above. The gentle lap of waves against the rocks was a soothing rhythm, a quiet song of the night. Clara paused at the water's edge, letting the cool breeze brush her face and ripple through her hair. She reached into her bag, fingers wrapping around the carved wooden bird, a small talisman that felt warm with the memories of the day. Above her, the lighthouse beams swept slowly across the sea, a steady beacon of light in the growing darkness. Clara watched it for a moment, feeling its quiet strength reach into her heart. Around her, the village began to settle, windows glowing softly with candlelight, faint murmurs of evening conversations fading into silence. The world seemed to breathe deeply, preparing for rest. Clara found a smooth stone near the shore and sat down, gazing up at the sky as the stars multiplied, shimmering like scattered diamonds on velvet. The cool air was scented with salt and earth, a perfect blend of sea and land. She let her thoughts drift gently, feeling the day's calm settle within her like a gentle tide. The light inside her, the same light the lighthouse cast across the sea, glowed steady and warm. With a soft sigh, Clara closed her eyes, letting the peace of the night enfold her. The world was quiet and kind, a place of stillness and soft hope. And as the lighthouse watched over the sea, so too did Clara carry its light within, a beacon to guide her through whatever nights might come. Clara closed her eyes, feeling the gentle embrace of night wrap around her like a soft blanket. The steady beam from the lighthouse continued its slow, rhythmic sweep over the dark waters, a comforting pulse in the quiet world. Her breathing deepened, slow and even, as she drifted between waking and sleeping. In this quiet space, her mind wandered softly, painting delicate scenes of light and shadow. She found herself standing beside the lighthouse once more, but now the sky was filled with stars, endless and twinkling, stretching far beyond the horizon. The sea was calm, reflecting the constellations like a vast mirror, and the air was warm with the scent of salt and blooming night flowers. Clara felt the carved wooden bird in her hand grow light and warm, as if alive with the lighthouse's gentle power. Around her, the world hummed softly with quiet energy, like a lullaby sung by the sea itself. In her dream, the lighthouse light reached out like a soft ribbon of silver, connecting the distant stars with the waves below. Clara stepped forward, feeling the cool sand beneath her feet and the soothing rhythm of the ocean's breath. With every step, she felt more at peace, carried gently by the quiet strength of the light, by the steady watchfulness of the lighthouse, by the calm pulse of the sea. Time seemed to stretch and fold, moments flowing into one another without hurry or end. Clara breathed in the night stillness, and the world whispered promises of rest, renewal, and quiet hope. And as the dream carried her deeper into its soft embrace, Clara knew that wherever she might go, the lighthouse's light, steady, warm, and unwavering, would always guide her home. Slowly, the darkness of the night softened into a gentle prelude of dawn. Clara's eyes fluttered open, greeted by the soft blush of morning light filtering through the window. The world outside was still quiet, wrapped in the hush between night and day. She lay for a moment, savoring the calm stillness, the delicate chorus of birds beginning their songs, the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a mild breeze. The promise of a new day settled softly in her chest, like a gentle breath of hope. Rising quietly, Clara moved to the window and looked out. The sky was painted in soft pastels, pale peach, lavender, and light blue blending like watercolor strokes across the horizon. The lighthouse stood tall in the distance, its silhouette dark against the awakening sky. Though the beacon's light had faded with the dawn, Clara knew its steady glow remained within her, a quiet flame that would burn through whatever the day might bring. She smiled softly, feeling grounded and ready to face the gentle unfolding of the morning. Each new day was a gift, a chance to walk slowly and mindfully, to carry light into every shadow. With a deep, peaceful breath, Clara stepped forward into the day, calm, steady, and full of quiet wonder. The village stirred softly beneath the pastel sky. Windows began to glow with warm light as curtains were drawn back, and the scent of fresh bread wafted through the air from the baker's small shop on the corner. The quiet clatter of wooden shutters opening and the gentle footsteps of early risers blended into a soothing morning symphony. Clara stepped outside, the cool morning air brushing against her skin like a gentle caress. The cobblestone streets were still damp with the last touch of night's dew, sparkling faintly in the growing light. Around her, the village slowly came to life, each moment unfolding with deliberate calm. She paused by the little fountain in the square, watching as a few early villagers gathered to fill their pitchers with cool, clear water. Their faces were soft and kind, and they exchanged quiet greetings, their voices low and peaceful. Nearby, children tiptoed along the edges of the village green, their laughter a gentle melody that floated through the crisp air without breaking the calm. A cat stretched lazily on a sunlit windowsill, purring softly as it basked in the warmth. Clara felt herself breathe deeper, taking in the peaceful rhythms of the village morning. Each sound, each movement, was a reminder of the slow, steady heartbeat of life here, a rhythm she was learning to follow. She smiled gently, feeling the lighthouse's light inside her pulse steady and bright. No matter where she wandered, this calm light was a part of her, a beacon of peace and quiet strength. And so, with soft steps and an open heart, Clara continued her morning walk, ready to embrace whatever small wonders the day might bring. As Clara wandered slowly toward the bakery, the warm, comforting aroma of freshly baked bread wrapped around her like a soft hug. The small wooden door creaked open, and out stepped an elderly man carrying a basket of warm rolls. His eyes sparkled kindly as he spotted Clara, and a gentle smile spread across his weathered face. "Good morning, Clara," he greeted in a soft voice. "The bread's just come out of the oven. Would you care for some?" Clara nodded gratefully, accepting a warm roll dusted with flour. The bread was soft and fragrant, comforting in its simple goodness. They stood together by the bakery's doorstep, sharing the quiet moments of the morning. "Not many are awake this early," the man said thoughtfully. "But there's something special about this hour, when the world is just beginning to stir, and everything feels possible." Clara smiled, feeling the truth of his words settle warmly inside her. "It feels like the village breathes differently at this time," she said softly. "Calm, gentle, full of hope." They watched as a few more villagers began to emerge, their faces bright with the slow awakening of the day. The man's gaze drifted toward the lighthouse visible in the distance, its tall silhouette steady and strong against the morning sky. "That light," he said quietly, "is more than just a guide for ships. It reminds us all to stay steady, to be a calm presence in a changing world." Clara nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace fill her heart. In this simple moment, surrounded by warmth, kindness, and the soft light of morning, she knew she was exactly where she needed to be. With a gentle farewell, Clara continued her walk, the bread warm in her hands and the lighthouse's steady light glowing softly within her soul. After leaving the bakery behind, Clara felt drawn once again to the soothing presence of the sea. She walked slowly down the familiar path that led from the village to the rocky shoreline, where the land met the endless expanse of water. The breeze was gentle, carrying the fresh, salty scent of the ocean. Soft waves lapped rhythmically against the stones, their steady sound like a lullaby whispered by the sea itself. Clara's footsteps slowed as she reached the edge, where the tide glittered under the warm morning light. She found a smooth rock to sit upon, its surface warmed by the sun. As she settled down, Clara watched the horizon where sky and sea blended seamlessly, a vast canvas painted with soft blues and hints of gold. The lighthouse stood tall nearby, its silent watchfulness a steady comfort. Though its light was not needed in the bright morning, Clara felt its presence deeply, a symbol of guidance and calm strength. Closing her eyes for a moment, she breathed in the salty air and listened to the quiet symphony around her, the distant call of seabirds, the gentle crash of waves, the whisper of the breeze through tall grasses. In this stillness, Clara felt her thoughts slow and settle, like sand gently washed by the tide. The worries and noise of the world faded, replaced by a deep, steady peace. Opening her eyes, she smiled softly. Here by the sea, in the gentle embrace of nature and light, Clara found a quiet refuge, a place where time moved slowly, and the heart could rest. With a calm spirit and a grateful heart, she rose from her seat and began the slow walk back to the village, carrying the sea's quiet strength within her. As Clara walked along the rocky shoreline, her eyes caught a narrow path partially hidden behind a cluster of wildflowers and tall grasses. Curiosity stirred gently within her, inviting her to follow this quiet trail. The path wound softly down between moss-covered stones and delicate ferns, leading to a small, sheltered cove, a secret nook embraced by cliffs and kissed by the gentle waves. The water here was calm and clear, shimmering like glass in the soft sunlight. Clara stepped closer to the water's edge, feeling the cool spray on her skin. Pebbles beneath her feet sparkled faintly, as if sprinkled with tiny stars. The air smelled of salt and earth, fresh and alive. She sat on a smooth boulder, allowing the peaceful hush of the cove to wrap around her. Overhead, seagulls circled lazily, their distant calls mingling with the soft sigh of the sea. In this hidden place, time seemed to pause. Clara felt the lighthouse's light within her, steady, warm, a quiet flame guiding her through the gentle mysteries of the day. She reached into her bag, touching the carved wooden bird, now feeling almost like a talisman of calm and connection. The cove whispered secrets only the sea and the wind knew, and Clara listened with an open heart. The waves played a slow, soothing rhythm, and the sun began to dip lower, casting long, golden shadows. Here, in this quiet embrace of earth and water, Clara found a moment of pure stillness, a deep breath of peace in the soft unfolding of the afternoon. Clara remained seated on the smooth boulder, watching the sun slowly descend toward the horizon. The golden light spilled gently over the water, turning each ripple into a shimmering ribbon of amber and rose. The sky above softened into shades of pale orange and lavender, a quiet painting unfolding just for her. The gentle rhythm of the waves continued its soothing melody, each gentle crash a tender reminder of nature's calm persistence. Clara breathed deeply, the cool sea air filling her lungs and clearing her mind. Her fingers traced the smooth surface of the wooden bird, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun still lingering in its carved curves. Around her, the cove was alive with soft sounds, the rustling of dry leaves stirred by a mild breeze, the distant call of a lone gull, and the subtle whisper of the waves pulling back from the shore. Every sound blended seamlessly, wrapping the place in a quiet symphony of peace. As the light faded, Clara's thoughts drifted to the lighthouse. Even though its beacon was meant to guide sailors through dark nights and stormy seas, she realized its light was also a symbol of steadfast hope, a reminder to stay steady and kind, no matter the changing tides of life. She smiled softly, feeling that steady light glowing warmly within her chest. It was a calm flame, gentle but unyielding, that would carry her through both bright days and quiet nights. The sky deepened to a dusky pink, and Clara finally rose, brushing the sand from her clothes. The cove had shared its quiet magic with her, a precious moment of stillness in the gentle flow of time. With a last glance at the shimmering sea, Clara began the slow walk back toward the village, each step light and unhurried. The evening air was cool now, filled with the scent of salt and wildflowers, and the soft promise of night's peaceful embrace.